welcome to In the Growth Space. David McGlennon here. Thank you for listening in today. You know, I say this every episode, and I really do mean it. I really appreciate you tuning into the podcast because I know that where you choose to invest your time really does matter. And the fact that you've chosen to invest it here just really means a lot to me. So let me also say that if the podcast has given you some value, would you do me one small favor? Would you go to your podcast app right now, scroll to the place where you can give us a rating, and hopefully you can give us a 5-star rating, and even just pause for a moment to add a quick review. And that would just mean so much to me and also to my team. Now, I want to start this episode by saying that, you know, it is so cool to hear people's journeys in life. And if you want to stir up your own curiosity, simply ask people to share their story. You'll be amazed at what you hear, especially if you listen generously. You know, we really can learn from other people on how to handle adversity and gain resilience. And quite frankly, also, and maybe most importantly here in the growth space, is growing ourselves and growing our teams and growing our companies. And, you know, I was introduced to today's guest, I think sometime last year, and we've had some really great one-on-one conversations and a lot about his life, his growth story, and even some of the lessons that he's learned and how he's used those in business and really to get him where he is today. And throughout those conversations, I realized that I wanted to share his story and his infectious energy with you. So let me just introduce you to Malcolm Nowlin. Malcolm is an amazing man, and he has an amazing story of challenge, of tragedy, and ultimately triumph as he navigated a youth that was really challenging. And it was a youth surrounded by drug and alcohol addiction and poverty. And you'll hear some of that story today and how he has used those youth lessons to bring him to being an accomplished speaker, a vocal performer, and side note here, you'll hear some of the famous people that he's sung with. Really cool. There was some stuff I didn't even know, but he's a community and business leader, and I just know that you're going to get so much value from this conversation. So without further delay, here's my conversation with Malcolm Nowlin. Well, hey, Malcolm, welcome to In the Growth Space. Man, I'm super excited to have this conversation with you today.
I'm excited to be with you today, David. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, man, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. You know, we've had several conversations and I've really just enjoyed, you know, getting to know you a little bit and just getting to know your story as well. And I'd love to have you share a little bit of that story because it always helps listeners to get to know, you know, what makes you you and really a little bit of kind of your growth journey. And so, you know, take us back to wherever you want to take us and share a little bit about that story.
All right, I will do that. But before I do that, I truly want to acknowledge the man, the person that you are. You have been authentic. You have been real. You've been easy to talk with. And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the impact. Keyword impact.
Yeah, love how you wove that in there.
That you are making, and you're truly genuine, and so I truly appreciate you, and I am honored to be here with you, and I sincerely mean that. So absolutely, my journey starts back when I was a little child, a little boy. Growing up on the north side of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So there was the Mexican War Streets, and then there was Jacksonia Street. I tell folks I grew up on the other side of the tracks on Jacksonia Street. And
the other side of the streets, right?
Oh, on the other side of the street, for sure. And I had a mother who loved me dearly, loved me, loved my mom. She was a force to be reckoned with too, man. She was about 5'3", about 100 pounds, but I feared her.
Yes.
I
love it. Small but mighty, right?
Oh, she was small but mighty, and she had a mouth on her too, Dave. She had no filter.
Oh my goodness, that's funny.
And although I knew my mother loved me dearly, she struggled with addiction,
Mm,
substance use disorder, and my
yeah.
father loved me dearly as well, and
Mm,
he struggled with substance use disorder. And my mother and my
mm,
father, they wound up separating when I was a young child. And actually my father and my mother, they were struggling with substance use disorder together, and then when they separated, she went and um, got involved with another man who struggled with substance use disorder. They were gathered
mm.
together for many, many years, and and they invited it into my home, meaning they didn't hide it. They allowed folks to come to our house. Our house was a shooting gallery, so they
Oh,
cooked
wow.
they cooked it up in the kitchen, Dave,
Oh, my
and
goodness.
they shot it up in their arms in my kitchen. There was times I
Mm,
would walk in the kitchen by mistake and find 5 to 6 folks in my kitchen shooting up heroin. That
wow.
was a difficult time. I remember one couple that used to come to my home to get high. They literally took me to a store down the street from our house. At this time, we were on Federal Street because we
Mm,
lived at different places on the north side, and we
yeah.
went to this store on Federal Street, and they literally taught me how to rob this store.
Oh,
She
my
she,
goodness.
she
Wow.
would distract the clerk, and he was putting his hands in the cash register while the clerk was distracted. Don't want to give anybody no ideas.
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
But
Can't do that.
and they did that right in front of me, but
Mm,
I was too scared to do that, Dave. I was too
yeah.
scared to do that, and I didn't do that. But I used my experiences as a strength, meaning I would I would hustle the
Mm,
right way. I would knock on my
mm,
neighbor's doors. Can I go to the store for you? Can I cut
yeah.
your grass? I used to stand outside a Giant Eagle, Dave, and say, can I carry your bags to your car? And I had no idea that I was learning how to be an entrepreneur
Yeah.
at at um at a little boy, at the age of a little
Yeah.
boy. I'm talking about 6, 7, 8 years old, Dave, knocking on doors. Can I cut your grass for you? Can I
Yeah.
shovel your snow for you? Standing
Wow.
outside a Giant Eagle. And so because I saw everything that my mother was going through, all the experiences she was going through, I saw the different people coming in my house, and I knew I didn't want to be like that.
Wow.
And it was challenging, very difficult.
Mm,
um but again, I was surrounded by love. It's just they couldn't give me the things that I needed
hmm.
as far as my mental growth, and
Yeah.
growing up, because I grew up very, very fast as a kid. My mother
Yeah.
has
Sounds like it.
Yeah, my mother has had it was me, my sister, and 4 other brothers and sisters. And so
Mm,
me and my older sister, we were taking care of my young brothers and sisters. So there was so much going on. There was
yeah.
so much going on
Yeah.
there.
Well, I'm so curious. So you used your your knowledge of what was happening around you for good, and for kind of learning those, what we now know, those entrepreneurial traits where you're hustling to help and serve. What do you think, like what was in you that like didn't take you down the wrong path? That there's a choice you have to make, obviously, and I'm just kind of curious what, if you even know, at 8 years old or whatever, what made you pick a better path, or pick a path that was more constructive?
Yeah, as I said, when I was young, I was experiencing all these different negative things inside my home. But
Hmm.
knocking on my neighbors' doors to see if I can go to store for them, can I
Hmm.
do work for them to make some cash?
Yeah. Yeah.
I knocked on some great doors.
Mm.
The one neighbor that lived across the street from me, beautiful house, Dave. I was living in an apartment, and that's one thing about my mom. She kept a clean house, Dave. She kept a clean house. No matter what
Oh.
was going on, she kept a clean house. But I
Mm.
never experienced, I didn't see what home ownership looked like and
Oh,
looked like,
sure.
and I didn't see what it looked like to live a life that was free of addiction. but my neighbor across the street showed me that life. They had a beautiful home, they owned it. And I'm sure they had different problems in their life, but they showed me a different way of living. They were married, they were working, and you can see the fruits of their
Yeah.
labor. You can see
Sure,
the fruits of
sure.
their labor, you know. And so
Yeah.
it was a different lifestyle. And and even I remember knocking on Mark Adams. He owns Bloom Cigar on the South Side.
Yeah.
Um, didn't throw that plug in there, mean to throw that plug
Yeah,
in there,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
No,
anyway,
it's good. It's
but
good. Yeah, yeah. I love it.
Mark Adams, he's a white man, and his wife was white, and they took in this little black guy,
Mm.
little black boy. Not only did he give me odd jobs on the north side, but he invited me to come to his house. He had a
Oh,
he
wow.
had a big, beautiful home in Mars, PA, Dave. And I was
Yeah.
like, wow, look at this. So it was like, on one hand, Dave, I was seeing all this negativity. And on
Mhm.
another hand, I was seeing positive way of living, positive. And two, and then I had my grandmothers, my two
Mm.
grandmothers, they took me to church, Dave.
Yeah.
My one grandmother, she took me to a Baptist church on the north side, and my other grandmother took me to a Methodist church on the on the north side. And so
Love it.
that faith helped me. So
Mhm.
as a young boy, Dave, I learned how to pray, man.
Yeah, sure.
Just
Yeah.
really just crying out and praying and
Shout out
talking
to
to
all
God.
grandmas who
Oh
take
man.
little boys to
Oh
church, right?
yes. Shout out to all the grandmas.
Oh, that's great.
Don't be discouraged, Grandma. They're gonna keep coming back. They're gonna keep coming around. They're gonna come around.
Yeah, I
But
love that.
that
That's so
helped me
good.
so much, Dave,
Mm,
because I learned how to pray, and it wasn't just going to
mm,
church on Sundays, but I began
yeah.
to develop a relationship with God, and then
Mhm.
just talking to him
That's so
about how
good.
I feel and what's going on with him. I remember one day, Dave, I looked up into the heavens and I was like, why me? And, and then Dave, um, uh, uh, I spoke at this conference. I spoke at this conference, Dave, and I'm the speaker now. I'm the MC, and I'm in my hotel getting prepared to go speak. And I looked out the window. I looked outside, Dave, and I looked up into the heavens, and I said, thank you. Because I remember
Yeah.
that little boy. I remember that little boy who was just like, why me? Why I have to go
Mm.
through this? Why do I have to experience this? But now I'm looking up into the heavens like, thank you. It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how just by, kind of perspective and sometimes we just have to reframe things to be
Yeah.
able to see things just a little bit differently. And oftentimes it takes a little bit of time too. I was just talking with a coaching client this morning about, the law of gender or the law of incubation, and that sometimes when we plant a seed, we don't see anything going on the top of the surface, but there's so much going on underneath, and the roots are growing, and there's this foundation that's being built. And so, so oftentimes those are the kinds of things that we need to be reminded of, so that in those times when we don't see anything going on above the surface, we can be reminded and actually know that there is some foundation being built. So I think that's just so important, and just being able to reframe the perspective of a situation.
Absolutely. That's the key word, perspective. How we see a thing and how we perceive ourselves, how we
Mhm.
perceive the situation around us. And
Yeah.
if we continue to look at things like it's negative, it's not going well, it's never going to go well.
Yeah.
If that's your perception, then more than likely that's going to be your end result of negative,
Yeah.
with the end result, negativity, no growth.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no
Exactly.
growth, no growth, no change. But when we begin to change our perspective and
Hmm.
begin to focus on, you know what, I'm going somewhere.
Yeah.
All my yesterdays are for today. And everything that I've
Yeah.
experienced is going to help me to get where I'm going. And I know I have these gifts, I have these talents.
Yeah.
And although I'm not exactly sure how it's gonna play out, I'm gonna keep on walking.
Love it.
I'm gonna keep on moving. I'm gonna do my part. I'm gonna do
Yep.
my
Yep.
part,
Yeah.
and trust that everything else is gonna fall in its place.
Yeah, right on, man. So for those of you who are listening and watching, you already are getting a flavor and a taste of why I wanted to have Malcolm on here. He's inspiring, and he just has a perspective on growth that I think is so important for every leader to take a look at. And one of the things that I really love, Malcolm, about your story is that it's a story of resilience, and it's a story of using a situation like what we were just talking about and reframing it, and really being able to use it as a springboard or a launching point for
Yeah.
your career and for success.
Mm.
And I'd love to maybe just ask you, like, what was it that was there a pivotal time that really you saw that for yourself, where you saw, I'm going to use, the things in my past for my present and my future?
Absolutely. And you're using some great words, launching. Woo!
Yeah,
You got some great one-liners there, Dave.
Note to podcast team.
And so launching, yeah, what launched me when I was in elementary school at Martin Luther King Jr. on the North Side.
Oh, wow.
I had a great music teacher named Mr. Howard. And
Uh,
Mr. Howard, he saw something in me. He
mm,
gave me an opportunity to sing, Dave. He
mm,
and I didn't even know it was in me, but
yeah.
I joined the choir, and then next thing I know, Dave, he had me sing this song. It came from "One in a Million You" by Larry Graham.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I'm a little boy singing Larry Graham's song "One in a Million." But he changed the words, Dave, to
Mm.
"School had played its games on me so long." And so
Oh, man.
now, Dave, so I've seen that song, and everywhere I go, somebody's asking me to sing. And I'm singing "One in a Million" all over Northside, man. And my mother, man, she used to take me everywhere with her. She would have me singing. She even took me to the bars a couple times.
Oh my gosh,
and,
that's great.
and Dave, I didn't mind because they would give me free pops, free chips,
Yep.
man.
Yeah, bring it on, right?
But
Oh, that's so
I'm
good.
singing all over "One in a Million You." But that opened up so many doors. And so then I realized,
Mm.
okay, I have a talent here. And then I was
Yeah.
thinking, and I thought that was where I was going to go. I thought,
Mhm.
because I started singing all over. When I say singing all over, meaning stadium, singing with the choir at the Three Rivers. It was Three Rivers Stadium at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
Then I go to Rogers for creative and performing arts. Then I go to Kappa for creative and performing arts, and I'm
Wow.
singing. And then, Dave, I'm learning how to do black classical and opera.
Oh
I'm
my.
singing classical and opera. I'm singing
I
songs
love that.
in German, Dave. I'm doing things that nobody in my family did.
Yeah,
I'm doing
that's so
things.
good.
I'm doing things, Dave, that I didn't even see.
Mhm.
I didn't see my mom doing this. I didn't see my dad doing this. I didn't see my mom's boyfriend of over 20 years doing this. But here I am doing things that I didn't even think about doing. I was going to be one of the
Mhm.
best R&Bs and ballads guys out
Yeah.
there. And but now I'm studying classical and opera, and it's taking me places that I never thought I would go to. Now
Mm.
I'm at Duquesne University, and I'm singing backup for Kenny Rogers. I'm singing while James Earl Jones is reading poetry. I'm right there singing in the background, while I get to study music with Bobby McFerrin at Tanglewood Music Institute in Lenox, Massachusetts, 2 hours outside of Boston. I'm doing these things, Dave. In my
That's
life,
amazing.
I'm seeing my life just unfolding. I'm looking on the outside like, wow, wow.
What a
I
yeah.
never thought I would be doing these types of things, but I was being launched. I was being
Mhm.
launched from
Yeah.
all the things that I saw, everything that I witnessed,
Mhm.
and just I knew that I don't want to be like this. I wasn't trying to be
Mhm.
better than my mother, wasn't trying to be better than my father or better than my mom's boyfriend. I
Just different.
simply I just wanted to be the best that I could be.
Yeah,
And
man. So wait a second. I just got to go back. I don't know if people have heard that or not. You sang backup for Kenny Rogers.
Sang backup for Kenny Rogers through Duquesne University. He had
Dude.
he had his Christmas pro tour, and he was at the Palumbo. At that time, it was called the Palumbo Center. And
Okay,
man,
now that is cool.
oh,
That
it
is
was
really cool.
cool. You
And
got to
Bobby
know when to hold
McFerrin,
them.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, man. But you know, with Kenny Rogers, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run, man.
When to run, exactly. I have a feeling you knew when to run, right?
Oh, shoot. Yes, I did.
Oh, man.
But Bobby McFerrin, oh, amazing.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Some of the
He's an
things he's
amazing
able to do with
musician,
his
right?
body. Oh,
Yeah.
amazing musician.
That's amazing. Well, and a shout out to all of our music teachers in the
Yes.
world, because
Oh,
I can say this, from my perspective, music meant a lot to me when I was growing up. And, I was in band, I was a trumpet player, and I did
yeah.
jazz band and concert band and marching band and
Nice.
pep band. And it taught me a lot. It taught me about a lot about discipline and persistence. And I think now that even as I look back on it, it taught me growth, because
Yeah.
from someone who started and I wasn't very good. Of course, everybody's not very good when we first start out, but it also showed me the path that if I applied myself, and if I kept practicing, and I
Yeah.
then expanded my practice time, which I'm sure you started to see that as well. You expand your practice time, and then you start doing the things that will help you grow.
Hmm.
That is going to feed into and help your path to keep moving you forward to where you want to go. And so
Absolutely.
I just had to
Absolutely.
make a quick shout
No,
out to, because I mean, sometimes
absolutely.
teachers don't realize the
Uh,
impact that they have on
yes.
young people. And so
Yes. And the teacher, Miss, not only Mr. Howard, but there was Miss Blackwell. I
mm,
was able to talk to her about what I was going through. And
yeah.
Dave, I wasn't the greatest student. Musically I did very well, but I wasn't the greatest student. But Dave, she would give me some candy if I did well, man. She did. If I did well, she give me. I look forward to that candy at the end of the
I
day.
love it. A little bit of
But
motivation there, right? Yeah.
yes, but one thing that
Yeah.
you said about music, that
Yeah.
that discipline, Dave. But not
Mm-hmm.
only is it discipline, but it's you begin to pay attention to the details, because when
Yes.
you're on
Yeah.
that stage, it's one thing to practice in front with your coach, with your vocal coach, or your
Mm-hmm.
instrumental teacher, but
Yep.
when you're on that stage,
Everybody.
everything everybody sees, they see the good, the bad, and the ugly. and,
Right.
and you
Right.
hopefully they just see the good. But the only
Yeah.
way you get to that good is by paying attention to those details. So
Love
when
that.
I was practicing my music, practicing the songs, especially if I was singing in another language. I would
Yeah.
begin I would begin to listen to that language, how they say it, and
Mm,
uh, and listen to the different cadences, and begin to understand what this song means. So when I got out there, that I
mm-hmm.
expressed that, and
Yeah.
they can feel it, because it's one thing, Dave, for you and I to feel it, but we
Mm-hmm.
want our audience to feel it, and not just us. So
Yes.
even when we're out in the marketplace, when you're out there selling, you might be feeling what you're selling, you might be connected to it, but you
Yep.
want the folks that you're selling to or presenting to, you want them to feel it, you want them
Yeah.
to have a connection to that. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to be mindful, and you have to pay attention to the details, so that other
Yeah.
folks can feel it too.
And I think that as you talked about, paying attention to details as it relates to music, it also creates a sense of community and connection, because you've
Oh,
got to be connected with
yeah.
all of the other, singers, the vocalists, or the instrumentalists. And when you do that, and when you spend so much time together, and you're working together towards that common goal of creating this beautiful piece, then you create this community and a sense of belonging. And I've just seen this in the workplace so much lately, that there's a need and a sense of needing and wanting that community and that connection and that sense of belonging. And I think that really it's something that we have to pay attention to, because for so long business and the work world has almost like tried to separate itself from those things, and I don't think we can anymore, because we're human beings. We've been made for community, we've been made for connection, and I think that that fuels our growth in every area of our life. And it makes me think too, Malcolm. And I'm kind of curious about how did you translate, your story, your growth path from being that little boy whose grandma took him to church, and you did the right things, and you saw these people who were living a different way. How did you translate that into your work? How did you translate that into maybe your work world, and the way you're going about, what you do?
Yeah, I began to call upon my yesterdays. And what I mean by that, Dave, is when I was that little boy knocking on those doors,
Mm,
um, I didn't knock on doors. I just didn't knock on the doors that folks I knew. I didn't just go up to folks that I knew. I went to folks that I didn't know. Now,
no, yeah.
today you got to be a little more mindful, right? I
Right,
was I,
right.
I was I grew up in a different era.
Sure, sure.
So
Yeah.
I normally with my children, I tend to go with them. You know,
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
when they're doing those hoagie sales,
Yeah.
I go with them.
I love it.
But when I was a child, Dave, I would knock on my neighbors' doors. I'd go to John Eagle, and I would go to folks who I didn't know, and that helped me because when I started working at Citizens Bank, and I started out as a sales service representative, I started out in the in-store Giant Eagle. I would walk up to folks in the in-store Giant Eagle. Hi, my name is Malcolm. I'm with Citizens Bank. How do you bank with Citizens Bank? Do you have accounts with us? No, we don't have accounts with you, sir. Who do you bank with? Oh, we bank at PNC Bank. Okay, how do you have a relationship with them? Well, we have a checking, we have a savings. Oh, that's great. You know what? I appreciate your relationship with PNC Bank. I would like
Yeah,
to introduce you to what I'm doing over here. And all
yeah.
just those from being a child, walking up to folks that I didn't know, I was
Engaging
able to,
them.
hey,
Yeah,
exactly,
asking good
engaging
conversation
and
questions.
yeah, and
Yeah,
being mindful of their space,
right.
being mindful of my approach and how
Sure.
I go up to, because I don't want to scare them.
Right. Yeah.
I
Well,
don't want to
yeah.
run away, you know. And
Yeah.
so
You
so
them
that helped
away.
me. Exactly. So that helped me to be able to do well at Citizens. But not only did I do well, I was in the top 4% of the company several times,
Wow.
became the I got to the point, Dave, where I'm managing 14 to 16 branches
Wow.
at one
Amazing.
time. And then
Yeah.
and and I was able to see where I came from. I was able to remember all the things that I experienced. So as
Hmm.
I began to do these things and grow and begin to excel in a place that I never thought I would be in, I remember where I was so that I wouldn't get too big headed. And then
Oh,
when
yeah.
I did get too big headed, I had folks in my life to help me bring me back down.
Grandma was close by, right?
My wife was close by. My
Okay,
wife was.
okay, your wife. That works too, right? Yeah. Oh, I know that. Oh man. Well, man, I love that, because as you were talking, and you were remembering your yesterdays, I think that what's really interesting, and I've said this on another podcast episode, but it's so important for us to kind of, I say, metaphorically look behind, and measure how far we've come, and
Yeah.
measure our gains rather than the gaps of how far we have yet to do and need to go. And shout out to Dan Sullivan, who is the coach who talks about the gap and the gain, and he wrote an amazing book with Dr. Benjamin Hardy called The
Mhm.
Gap and the Gain. And that's where I get that, and it was really a profound book for me, because it helped me to shift my thinking about just achievement, and being okay with where I am now, because of what where I've come from. And I think
Yeah.
your story illustrates that, and I really love that. One thing I just wanted to ask you, because as you were talking about going up to people and talking to them, and even going house to house, there had to be, maybe, and maybe not as a child, but maybe as an adult, there had to be an element of fear. and maybe not, but I'm maybe projecting here that you might have had a little bit of fear as you started those conversations. And so I guess my curiosity is saying, how did you overcome that? Because I always love to hear how other people have overcome that fear of, whether it's judgment or whatever. So how did you overcome that?
Yeah. There was a lot of fear, Dave. A lot of fear in every transition of my life, every area of my life. There was fear has always been there
Mm,
because because I wasn't getting what I felt like I needed at home. I was
mm,
always looking for it out here. I
yeah,
was always trying to get it from out here. So I feared rejection.
yeah,
Although I was able to walk up to folks who I didn't know, I still had a fear of rejection, fear
mm,
of being turned away, fear of somebody misunderstanding me, or felt or fear of just that fear of the unknown.
yeah, right.
And so even with music, Dave, that's one of the reasons why I practiced so hard, is because I
Mm,
didn't want them to reject me when I got on that
oh,
stage. And
yeah.
so I always had that fear, man. That heart was going,
So it
going,
kind of
going,
drove
going.
you then. Yeah.
Yeah, it drove me, and not only that, it was it was the ability to be able to go out there and just try it anyway. You know, I I I,
Yeah.
I think I hated not doing something more than I was afraid of being rejected. I feared not giving it my all, feared not
Hmm.
doing it, feared not going to go ahead and give it a try. I'd rather give it a try and fail at it than
Yep.
than not at all. So,
Oh, I
and
love
but
that.
that came over a period of time, Dave, because
Yeah.
there's still things I do in my life that I feel that fear is knocking at the door, Dave. Is knocking at the
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
But I choose to not answer
Mm,
answer that door, and to continue to go forward, and knowing that I'm in a vulnerable space here, but I
hmm.
choose to be vulnerable. I
Yeah.
choose to go ahead and give it a shot. And so that's something, to answer your question, Dave. I work out daily. I,
Yeah.
I, I work out daily. I'm
I love that.
still I am overcoming
Yeah.
fear. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the fact that you're overcoming. It's still a process and a progress because we always are facing some kind of fear. And I guess to, the leaders who are listening, I think listen to what Malcolm said. He's doing things even in the face of fear. And that then helps him to recognize that he can overcome that fear and
Hmm.
and he can recognize it, feel the fear, and yet do it anyway. And I think
Yes.
that is so important for
Yes.
leaders to remember,
Yes.
especially emerging leaders, because
Yes.
so oftentimes they're afraid of public speaking or afraid of speaking up in a boardroom, and it's really important to be able to notice that inside of you and then do it anyway.
Yes. And you know what? You have to remember your history.
Mm, yeah,
You have to remember what you already overcame.
yeah, yeah, that's so good.
You have to remember that. So when you go to face something new, a new challenge,
Hmm.
you can say, well, you know what? And you're feeling that fear, and you're afraid of going forward, afraid of, am I going to close this deal? Are they going to give me a shot? Is this going to work out for me? Then you can look back and say, hold up, I went through that and overcame. I
Hmm.
went through that and overcame. Oh, I
Yeah,
can I could go through this too.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
could go through this too. I could go through this too. And that's,
Absolutely.
you gotta remember your history, and
Yeah,
and
that's so good.
allow
Yeah.
your history to propel you forward,
Hmm.
and even those things in your history that were challenges, and that were that you're still overcoming. you
Yeah.
you 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 just keep on going forward. You continue to overcome, you continue to grow, and don't ever get to the point where you stop growing.
Yeah. Oh man, primo man. I tell you what, that's why. I mean, and that's really why I have this podcast, is because I want people to know that it's a journey, and it's a
Yeah.
continual journey, and it never ends. And that's, I think, the joy of life. It's the joy, and it's the challenge of life. And as you were sharing that, talking about knowing your history, it reminded me of the exercise we just took our elite inner circle members through. Some executives that came to our retreat down in Florida. We did this timeline exercise where we we invited them to go into this exercise and take a look at the timeline of their life, and
Yeah.
mark out and highlight some of those past successes,
Yes.
and could be failures as well, and what they
Yeah.
learned from it. But the successes in particular, because those successes show us the history of where we've been, what we've overcome,
Yeah.
and then it informs our future as well. So I think that as we take a look at learning to grow in this continual growth process, sometimes we have to do that turnaround and look at our timeline of our life, and understand those things that we have overcome. And I think that that's just a brilliant exercise. And I would invite our listeners to do that exercise. And if you ever
I
want me
agree.
to facilitate something like that for you, I'd be happy to do that. So,
Dave is your man. Give Dave
yes,
a call.
absolutely.
Let him make it happen. But you know what, Dave, I love that because when we all know we don't know what's in us until things are going wrong. When
Mhm.
everything is going right, we can't
Yeah.
we can't see it. But when things start going wrong, then we can
Mm,
see what's in us. But also those successes too. When we start having those successes, we
yep.
can build off of it. But not only that, those success stories are not just for us.
Yes.
It's for us to give away. Give it away. I
Yeah.
I'm so bothered by folks who don't want to give it away, and they just feel like, well, I went through this, you got to go through it too. No, I don't have to go through everything you went through.
It's the beauty of
Save
mentorship, right?
save me
Yeah.
from that. Protect me from
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Help me.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Well, Malcolm, I love your story, and I love your growth journey, and I so appreciate just your openness and sharing. And I'd love just to, I don't know if there's something that we haven't talked about today that you would love to just share with the audience. And if there is, just, anything to kind of wrap a bow on our conversation today here. This is so powerful. Your growth journey is really enlightening, and I love it.
Thank you, Dave. We got to do this again, man.
Yeah, right on. Absolutely.
uh, but
Over
what I
over real coffee this time,
Yeah,
not virtual.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So I want to say that I work now for as the business relationship director for the Pittsburgh Business Group on health, and I
Yeah.
also own my own company, M. Nowlin Enterprise LLC, and
Hmm.
under that enterprise is um, motivational, transformational, keynote speaker, moderator, event
Yeah.
MC. But I share with you how I had a lot of success when I was in banking, Citizens Bank. But when it was time to transition from Citizens to PBGH, I first of all, I knew it was time to go and it was time to fly. And and but I didn't know where I was going to.
Hmm.
And then I realized, wow, I have a lot of transferable skills.
Mm.
And so what I want to share with everyone out there is when you are in a place of transition and you're not sure what to do, look deep inside and realize
Mm.
that you have transferable skills that will take you places that you didn't even think you would go, but you have transferable skills.
Mm.
And even with my performance background,
Yeah.
it's helping to flourish M. Nolan Enterprise LLC, where my mantra is move forward together.
Yeah.
And
I
that's the
love
name
that.
of the game. And going back to the community that you were talking about, Dave, it's so important to
Mm.
um, surround yourself with people who are going to add on to you.
Yeah.
They're going to
Yeah.
add on to you and not take away from you.
I love it.
Be with the right people And that
Mm-hmm.
will make all the difference of your life. And you'll say, well, Malcolm, how I know who the right people are? You'll know.
You'll know. Yeah.
You'll be able to tell who's for you and who isn't for you. But those folks who aren't for you, it'll drive you to your knees.
That's right. That's right.
And
Absolutely.
that helps you be, and that helps you be better as well.
Yes, absolutely. Oh man, my friend, thank you so much for this conversation. There
Thank
is
you.
so much, in here, and I just love hearing the story, and I love sharing your story with the audience. Tell people, how can they get in touch with you, because I want people to know about you, and to get in touch with you, find out more, about the things that you're doing, the speaking. I know you do singing as well, but all of
Yeah.
those kinds of things. Yeah.
So there's several ways you can get in touch with me. One, as I said, I'm the business relationship director for the Pittsburgh Business Group on Health. So you can find me at www.pbghpa.org. Then for M. Nowlin Enterprise LLC, where I'm the founder and CEO, you can reach out to me at malcolmenowlin.com. You can go to my website too. You could go to my website through move-forward-together.com too. So it's either malcolmenowlin.com or move-forward-together.com. I would love to speak at your event, love
Yes.
to be your MC, your moderator, or your keynote speaker. Would love to do that.
Love that, Malcolm. Thank you so much. And we'll make sure that we put those links in the show notes, because I know there's a lot of times when people are either driving or working out or doing something else while they're listening to this. And so we'll make sure that those go in the show
Wonderful.
notes. So yeah, so people can take a look at those and click on those. So Malcolm, my friend, you are an inspiration, and I really appreciate you, and I appreciate the fact that we've gotten to know each other a little bit, and I'm really grateful to hear your journey, and share your journey. And so, just kind of as we wrap up, what I'd like to be able to just encourage the audience with is, what's something that, as you listened to Malcolm's story, what's something that you can take away from that and actually put it into action? What's one thing, just one thing that you can put into action? Because it's all about momentum, and momentum starts with one action. So what's that one action? And not only just think about that, write it out, and then while you're doing that, send me a note and let me know what that one action is. It would mean the world to me, because I love hearing from the audience, and I love hearing what you're taking away from our guests, and from their story. So David at davidmcglennon.com, just send me an email. I'd love to hear that. And then also, while I'm asking, would you please go out and rate and review the podcast? It would really mean the world to me. And we want to be able to reach more people with this story of growth, and with these conversations of growth. So Malcolm, thank you once again, my friend. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And
Thank you, Dave.
till we get a
Appreciate you.
till we get a chance to share that coffee in person, be well.
Yes. You as well. You as well. Thank you, David.